What did you see?
I saw that.
Given that I was one of about a dozen people that really enjoyed the first Nun when it released, I was pleasantly surprised when a sequel was announced. Like Annabelle before it, The Nun had some great elements that didn't come together completely. And also, like Annabelle Creation, The Nun II looks to course correct to make it into a more viable franchise. So gone is Franco Nero as the old priest, and instead we have a relatively young, and predominantly female, cast. This already helps to separate it from the original and gives it a bit of a makeover. But if you're wanting something that completely reinvents the wheel, then you may have to look somewhere else. The Nun II follows the events of the first film, with Maurice, aka Frenchie, possessed by the demon, and making his way across Europe in search of something mysterious. Sister Irene, played by Farmiga, is informed that the demon Valak is still alive, and she is the only person that the church has to fight her. I always felt that Taissa Farmiga was a little bit stiff in the first one as she contended with the old-timey speak, but she's much improved here. It was nice to see her take her place as a strong character after all of the struggles that she went through prior. She's no longer the meek little nun from the first film and is much more on top of things. I also really enjoyed Storm Reed, even if her character is a bit underserved. I was extremely excited to see Jonas Bloquet's Maurice return, as his chemistry with Farmiga is great. I really love what they do with this character, as they could have easily excised him and used a different excuse to involve Valak in the proceedings. I also think that it was a brilliant decision to set the film in a former monastery turned boarding school. This allowed for so many great visuals while providing a host of potential victims, which really helps elevate the tension. There was even a death early on that I really was not expecting, and seemed to raise the stakes. Unfortunately, this almost feels like a false promise, as the bloodshed is quite light for the rest of the film. In fact, I was shocked to see that this one was R-rated, as it could have easily earned a PG-13 with a few cuts. I actually have a hard time thinking of anything in this that I haven't seen on cable TV. And if you're not a fan of jump scares, then you may struggle with this one, as it's essentially jump scare city. It gets to the point that as soon as one scare happens, they immediately start building tension for the next one. This works quite cleverly a few times, but gets really tired after a while. Had they done just a few less, then it would have really left more of an impact. And I feel like I need to give a special shout out to Bonnie Aarons, who plays the titular nun. Aarons is currently involved with a lawsuit against the studio, accusing them of unfairly compensating her for her image. Given how important Aarons' visage is to the film, this is an absolute travesty. I know that I'm rooting for Miss Aarons, as these films just wouldn't be the same without her unique look. It's been pretty impressive to see where they've taken this series that started as an ancillary villain of another movie. I wouldn't be upset if this were the end of the character, as this both wrapped up loose ends from the first while providing a pretty satisfying conclusion. But if you weren't a fan of the first film, I can't imagine this one changing your mind. This follows many of the same beats of the original and doesn't do much outside of what you would expect. The CGI is improved in spots, but there are still some moments that will have you shaking your head. However, if you're just going into this wanting some tension-filled jump scares and some great visuals, then there are worse ways to spend a Friday night, which is why I would give The Nun II a 6 out of 10.
You send that thing back to hell.
The Nun, Chapter 2, rated R, September 8th.